Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're watching. Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Now Talk Show. I am your host, Dr. Nadine Wong. The Now Talk Show is sponsored by the Alabaster Wellness Clinic. Today, we have two distinguished gentlemen, and you've heard the story of 10 great minds that came together to produce an awesome book. The name of the book is The New Me. And without further ado, we've already had a slight delay, which I apologize for. And I'm just going to introduce the two guests and then we get right into the meat and potatoes just to understand how the concept of the new me came around, and they will just express themselves from the point of a man because we believe that when a man speaks, he has the ability to shape the world. So without further ado, I would like to welcome to the Now Talk Show Mr. Jeff Martin and Mr. Randell Adjei.
Dr. Wong, how you doing today?
I am well. Gentlemen, I'm truly honored to be in your presence. Great mind. I love it. Great
Honored to be
mind.
here.
And I know you guys are just gonna share some great context, which I am the audience. We're just sitting back, ready just to, learn from you guys. So without further ado, I'm gonna ask the question and you take turns in answering. Tell us a bit about who you are. Let's start with you, Mr. Martin. A bit about who you are. How were you raised? Were you raised in a two-family home? And where were you, or where's your cultural background from?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, super excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Jeff A.D. Martin. I am a speaker. I'm an author. I am someone who just really wants to help our community grow. And, you'll hear about the book in terms of how we're doing that in that aspect. But, for me, in terms of my background, I was born and raised with two parents, both still together. They have really been, an icon for me to look at when I can see what love is and what being together is. And so, I use that as a model for my own relationship with my wife. And my parents came from Jamaica. I was born in Toronto. But again, with the lessons that they were able to learn and take from the island and bring it over here, it has really helped me to blossom into who I am today. So I'm super proud of my background, super proud of my family. And I'm always about just really trying to help people move forward in life.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's a great start. And Mr. Adjei, please tell us about your background, your cultural background, and how were you raised?
My background is my parents are from Ghana, West Africa.
Okay.
I grew up primarily with both of them there most of the time. And I didn't mention this earlier, but I'm a speaker, spoken word artist, community leader, activist, author, and just really excited about being able to transform my pain into power and how I'm able to really help other people discover what that looks like as well too. And like Jeff, I'm really honored to be here. I got to check out a couple of the videos that you've done in the past, and I think this is a really amazing initiative and really important that men have space to talk about what's going on because there's not many spaces for us, and that's why I'm really grateful for Jeff. To go back to your initial question, I did grow up with both my parents most of my life, and they taught me a lot. They taught me a lot, and I'm quite excited about what the future looks like.
Well, I'm prophetic and I see the future. This book, You Men, it's bright. It's bright. So I read the bios and it's very saturated. I'm not even sure how or where we're going to start, but let me just try to do it in installment here in layers. So I know that you guys both had an awakening moment, and the whole vision of this program is highlighting trials, how you have overcome in terms of the pivotal point and where you are in the now. So if you could, either of you, please, at what point, what was the awakening point of your life, the transitional point? I know Mr. Martin, somebody close to you had passed away. Okay, so perhaps you could start from that aspect, or if you think that's the area you need to start from.
Yeah, absolutely. So my chapter within the book is called Ugly Gift, because I believe that in every circumstance that we go through, no matter how difficult it might be, there's always a gift. There's always something we can learn. We can grow through it. This year, 2020, has been hard on a lot of people for so many reasons, but we're able to grow through it if you're looking for the lessons through it. And so, going back to my chapter in the book, I speak about 2005. 2005 was a really tough year for me because I had lost a cousin to gun violence. Okay. And, the same year that in 2005, I actually got hired as a police officer. And I wanted to pursue that because growing up, I grew up in a really tough neighborhood. And I often saw when the police came around, it always felt like harassment. But what I was able to see is that they had a certain level of power. And I thought to myself, if I can use that power to influence the community, influence young people, then perhaps I can make a difference in their life. And so I pushed towards that. I actually achieved that goal in 2005. However, just 15 days after my police graduation, I received a phone call from a cousin of mine that told me that another cousin, her brother, Omar McLeod, was shot and killed downtown Toronto. And that was the year of the gun in Toronto. The summer of the gun is what they called it, because the spike in gun activity had gone really high. Unfortunately, 2020 is very much the same. It's been a really tough year for gun violence. And so it was a battle for me, because it was almost like having the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other. There's a part of me that really wants to go out there and seek revenge. I grew up in a really tough neighborhood. I learned a lot of tough lessons. And one of those lessons was to go out there and handle your business. And then the other half of me was,
okay, Mr. Martin is a bit frozen. Perhaps Mr. Adjei, did you want to pick up on the question until his internet release him?
Sure, no problem. So very similar to Jeff, I grew up in a really challenging neighborhood myself. I grew up in a couple of challenging neighborhoods here in Toronto before moving to Scarborough. And I think one of the difficulties that I really experienced was just the sense of belonging, just looking to belong and feeling like I really wanted to fit in somewhere. So growing up in Ghana between the ages of 1 to 6, when I came back to Toronto, it was really being African right now is really cool. Everybody's wearing the dashikis and eating African food, and everybody wants to go back home to Ghana or to the continent, but it wasn't exactly the same about 20 some odd years ago. And so, it was just really about belonging and try to find my roots and where I stood. So I think when Jeff approached me about the book, and it's, for me personally, I'm honored to share tonight with Jeff, because it's Jeff, man. Jeff's just such a great human being, great dude, good big brother. And, if you ever need anything, he's someone you can go to and connect with. And I think what's really allowed me and helped me was having people like Jeff. And so that was a big part of my journey, just having the right people who were there at the right time. I think for me, the moment, there's definitely several moments that changed. I was a young person who got himself into a lot of trouble at a really young age. The community I grew up in, we grew up fast. By like 10, 11 years old, you knew stuff you weren't supposed to know.
Mr. Adjei, now, please. We're going to ask you to extract a little bit more than that. You got yourself in trouble. What kind of trouble are we talking about? You learned some things. What kind of lessons did you learn?
For sure. I would say the trouble that I got myself into, like Halloween, we stole candy from kids on Halloween.
No, you didn't.
We did stuff like that. And I was arrested for it, actually. My first time at about 12 years old. So at 12 years old, I was arrested 3 times, actually. And, by that time, my principal already labeled me as the worst student she ever had in 31 years of teaching, I believe. And it was the same principal who kicked me out of that school, actually. And when I got kicked out of that school, I felt as though the world was about to end, and I felt victimized. But the school that I went to was not too far away. And I think one of the greatest gifts that happened in that situation was I ended up going to a school, And I just want you to picture like your second year of teaching as a grade 8 teacher. You get this record of a student named Randell Adjei, and he's been arrested 3 times. He's been suspended more than 30 times. You know, often you'd label him and say he's trouble. But one thing I loved about this teacher, she actually didn't do that. She actually took the time to want to get to know me. She asked questions. She
That's
paused.
a teacher.
That's a real teacher, you know, because all the other teachers wrote me off and they didn't want to hear me because Randell's a trouble kid. You don't want him in your classroom. So I guess like the lesson that I learned from that, getting kicked out of school my very first day of grade 8, is you like, one, you really got to learn to trust the process and understand that there's something I really believe in called alchemy. And alchemy is really the process of taking rocks and transforming them into gold, right? And I think in our lives, we all have the propensity to do the same thing, where you can take a rocky situation and turn it into a golden moment.
That's right.
And the reason I say that, just to bring that story full circle, is that teacher helped me discover poetry. And it's poetry that actually helped me find my voice and become more involved in community. And I ended up going to a particular high school because I went to that school. I got involved in basketball. So that principal I had, who kicked me out of the school and called me the worst student she had in 31 years of teaching, if she was alive today, I'd say thank you, because your role at the time seemed to be a role that was victimizing me, but you were actually playing a role that was much bigger than she could have even imagined, you know? And that's that high school that I graduated from. Actually, I graduated with like honors and a scholarship, and I left that school with valedictorian award. So I think in life, what I've learned is you really got to learn to trust the process, but how do you turn those rocky moments into golden opportunities is what I would add to it.
Okay. Wow. Well, it's not how you start, but it's how you end, how you ended. And that's a real pivotal moment. You share that you were arrested 3 times. When you got arrested the first time, what was the difference between the first time and the third time? Because I'm assuming after the third time, you didn't get arrested again.
I wish I could say no. It happened a couple times after, but I'll say.
So what happened the first time you got arrested? What was that moment like? What was the thought, or the first thought, or the continuous thought that you had?
The first time, I would say, I was definitely just with the wrong people at the wrong time. You know, we knew what we were going to do that night. We knew that we all dressed in all black. We knew we were going to be robbing kids for their candy. So, you know, just being around the people, because I wanted to belong, I wanted to fit in, right? It was being around the wrong people at that time. And if anything, one of the guys said, listen, let's walk. And I said, no, I like, let's hang out because the police are here. I want to make sure my friends are good. But it ended up turning out that I was the one they were there for in the first place, you know? And compared to the last time, funny enough, if I was to say, is again being with the wrong people. So sometimes lessons in life, I feel like they come twofold, threefold, fourfold until you finally learn, until it finally hits home. So that's actually, I never thought about that before. The first time I got arrested was being with the wrong people, and the last time I got arrested was being with the wrong people. And trust me, after that, my circle changed, and my circle has revolutionized for sure.
So you have Ghanaian parents, and I can't imagine your parents any different from the Caribbean parents.
Oh, Nadine, so they were not easy on me. Oh.
How do you say it in your language, Tofiokwa? Is that what you say? How do you say it?
It's funny. In Tree, that's what you say, but we speak. Okay. So we're from Accra, so we speak Ga. So I actually don't know Tree too well, but yeah, we speak Ga. So
okay, Ga, go ahead.
And what am I translating again?
I think the translation to be God forbid. I think that's what it means in Tree. But what did your parents say? Because I can't imagine them being any different from a Jamaican or a Caribbean parents. You got arrested for candy?
It must have been some good candy.
I know. This is not about just being in the wrong crowd. Now the whole community, I'm pretty sure a phone call got sent back to Ghana. Did you know what he did? Okay, so please, if you could express that.
Wow, that's actually really funny. Thank you. You got me really laughing. Jeff was like, Jeff, you made that was funny, Jeff. Both of you guys are funny. It was definitely not, it did not go easy. You know, my dad came to pick me up at 42 Division, and it was like 11 p.m., almost midnight. And I mean, to be honest with you, like I was really ashamed because of the nature of what happened. Um, and hey, that's destiny. I was really ashamed because of what happened, but you know, the reality is everybody was really disappointed, you know, because they knew I was a good kid. But once we moved to that neighborhood, everyone knew like I was just with the wrong people doing the wrong things in general. They weren't happy for sure, but I think like my uncles, my aunties, they all reached out to say like, what's going on? Why are you doing this stuff? But I don't think I understood just the nature of what I was doing at the time. I was just really trying to fit in. And to be honest, like getting arrested the first time, like, I don't know why, but kids thought I was cool all of a sudden, you know? And I guess I wanted to live up to that persona because I found something. Like this idea of wanting to belong, I find something. I was a trouble kid. And so people knew not to mess with me afterwards, you know? So it became a part of my identity.
But who told you that you were a troubled child?
I heard it most of my life, to be completely honest with you. You know, from my father, my dad was a really judgmental. He was really judgmental when I was younger. Um, and teachers did a good job of reminding me. Principals did a good job of reminding me that, you know, I was a troubled child. So, you know, as any young person, eventually you start to believe it. And I definitely believed it, and it stuck.
So you had an audience that, I guess, inoculated you with the most negative format. At what point did you have an audience that cheered you on and said, listen, you are a great person, you're going to become someone great? What was the turning point?
I'd say the turning point would really have to have been that grade 8 teacher. And my audience was still very much the same because I came from this bad school. But it really happened, I believe, in grade 10. When there was a group of teachers, you know, who I can name to this day, who I can call to this day, who I can reach out to this day, you know, and just say, can we go out for a bite? And they'll still, you know, take me out for a bite. And I think when the teachers started to see something in me, and they'd say, I heard this almost every year in my elementary year, Randell, you have potential. Randell, you have potential. Randell, you have potential. But the word potential became, it just started to have a negative connotation, because what you're telling me is that I have potential to be something, but I'm lacking, but I'm lackluster. I'm not good enough. And I've always heard that I wasn't good enough. So when those group of teachers took me, I think it was Boston Pizza, they took me out to one time, and we just sat there and had a conversation, and they were just telling me what they're asking me what I wanted to do with my life at that time. And I started to see the audience change because the teachers started seeing me differently. And then I started doing advocacy work at school, and you know, things like feed the houseless and getting involved with different initiatives, the community initiatives. And I think the audience started to change because they started looking at Randell different. Like, that's not the same Randell that came into school. That's not, who's that, you know? And things started to change a little bit for me. And when you start to hear the positive, you know, you start to hear a different ring to the tune. You start to believe that as well too, especially when you're still finding yourself in high school.
So were you popular with the ladies as well, or is it just the crowd?
I don't mean to toot my own horn, you know.
Oh no, dude, this is the platform. Come on now.
It was both. I'd say it was both for sure. Yeah, it was definitely both for sure. But my mom always raised me to be respectful, and I was always really respectful on that end, for sure. You know, I had my mishaps here and there, but I learned from them for sure.
Well, please shout out your mom, because that's a good mom.
Yeah, mom, man, that's my champion. That's my best friend. You know, she's
a good mom.
She's a great person. Yeah, for sure.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that aspect. Can you tell us about? So you wrote a chapter. Tell us a bit about that chapter, and what was the connection like meeting Jeff? And you said it before that he just allowed you to be open and put it pen to paper. There was a transition that happened. You want to share that, the connection and the transition aspect of it?
For sure. I mean, the main thing I want to say is like Jeff has this amazing ability to really be so honest. And he's a very honest human being. And one thing I can really share is I shared with him what I thought would be presentable. He said, "This is a great story, but let's go deeper." I'm sure as you've heard from some of the other folks, and I came back like, "What do you mean?"
How did you meet him? How did you guys meet? For him to ask you to write the book and for you to trust him enough to trust the vision that he's going to put this and bring it. How did you guys meet?
Jeff and I have been in many circles, but Jeff, I don't remember how we initially met. And maybe Lance, I think Lance introduced us.
Oh, a mutual person, okay.
A mutual friend, or did we meet prior to?
I can't recall. I know I've known of you for a while and the work you've been doing, but yeah, in terms of our official connection, it's been a while, so I can't even place a finger on it as well.
Yeah, same. Because I want to say it was a mutual friend. I was doing a speakers program called Speakers University, and a mutual friend named Lance Constantine brought us involved. So after Jeff sent back his second one, I think the thing about this is it's such a deep, it's so deep in terms of how deep he was asking us to go. So for him to send back feedback to say, go deeper, I was like, fam, I don't know if I can go any deeper than this. I was like, bro, this is a very vulnerable story that I don't share with many people, especially
right.
in the form of writing or literature. So I sent back my draft. And I think it took me a while to get the second draft back just because I was like, I don't know how much deeper I can go. And I feel like, oh, thanks, Destiny. And I feel like the third time I sent something, I really questioned. I said, well, what's the audience and how do I want people to really engage with this? How can I really help people to not only understand, but also feel like what was their moment of transformation? So I really want to big up Jeff, mainly because of the fact he trusted me with my story. It was a very vulnerable story. And what I really appreciate the most is that he held, the story was like my baby. He held it like a baby, like he cared for it. You know what I'm saying? And he said, "You're beautiful, but you can be better. Here you go." And then,
he role played.
He role played it. And then when I gave him the baby back, he said, "Oh, this is so much better, but oh man, you can be even more beautiful." You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so it was kind of this back and forth process. And I think what I love the most about Jeff's vision is that he was very clear, but also very he was also very perseverant. In the sense that it wasn't a quick turnaround. It took some time for this to actually come to life,
Right.
But he was willing. He's seen the vision and he helped us to the vision too. So I'm really happy with how things turned out, to be honest with you.
Wow, Mr. Jeff Martin, it's
Appreciate
your
that,
show.
brother.
Oh my goodness! After that, please.
Man, I've never heard it described that way, where I took your baby.
I know.
I love that, though. I love that.
Only thing left was you lactated, maybe.
Oh man, I did what I could. I don't know if I can lactate it, but I gotta say this, Dr. Wong.
You definitely fed it, though.
Yeah, I did what I could for sure. Dr. Wong, these guys were amazing individuals to work with. To hear the stories, the diversity within their stories. And, it was important for me to dig deep, even for myself. There's things that I didn't really want to talk about or disclose. But the truth of the matter is that people learn when you hear about someone else's circumstances,
that's right.
How they fell down and how they got back up.
Yes.
And, if we're looking to tell a story, Little Bo Peep or whatever, Red Riding Hood, and at the end of it, there's no lessons, there's nothing they can take from it, then it's just a story. But if we were able to dig deep and talk about the situations we've been through, no matter how embarrassing it might be, no matter how vulnerable it makes us, ultimately there's someone that's going to be healed by it. And that is the bigger picture. If someone laughs at me for what I've been through, or, they think it's, hilarious of the way I fell down, they can laugh, but there's people who are going to look at it and say, because of you, I'm still standing. Because of you, I'm persevering through my issues. And that's what it's about to me. And so I'm so thankful that these guys were able to dig deep. And again, even though for some of them it was embarrassing, for some of them going that deep in vulnerability was difficult, they were willing to do it because they saw the bigger picture. And that's what it was about. So I'm really thankful for all 9 of these guys for really jumping in and being involved.
So, Mr. Martin, you had a slight internet challenge, so don't think you're getting
Man.
off the hook. Don't think you're getting off the hook.
I'm with you.
So, I'm not sure if you recall where you were when there was a slight technical difficulty, but
Yeah.
I want to ask you this question: why 10 men?
Initially I was thinking maybe 12. I was kind of playing with the number. I wasn't initially looking to really pinpoint on the magic number, but I think as it started to move, it started to evolve into what it was. And, I thought about, do I add a couple of more or do I make it 8? But I think 10 just kind of worked out to be a nice number to work with. All of these guys are busy in their own right. They all are leaders within their own right. And so it was difficult to, kind of keep in touch with everybody because everybody has different things, families and, jobs and whatever it is, and leaders in their community. But it turned out that 10 was just the right number to really get the point across with this book.
So you are aware that the Now Talk Show is a safe platform for men. I strongly believe that when a man speaks, he has the ability to shape the world.
Absolutely.
So this is the platform for it. And being a woman, I ask, perhaps the second book will be 10 Men Meet 10 Women.
Well, we'll see what goes down. The door is not closed on anything. I got to say, it was a lot of work putting everything together. And our goal really is not just a book, it's a movement. Our goal is to create courses from this. Our goal is to create programs from this. So although, the book is the first step in this, the whole idea is to really widen it, to really reach other people as well, including women. Yes, it was 10 men that came together to write this book, but we want to get in the lives of women. We want to get in the lives of our children. We want to change things as a community. So yeah, definitely. We're looking to branch out. We're not sure what that's all going to look like. So I'm not closing the door on the women piece, but we're all, when it's all said and done, all of us have the heart to give and to help. And that's what we're looking to do.
So you said the book is a pivotal point to introduce programs. Highlight some of the programs that you would like to see, or the programs that are already there that you want to highlight in terms of how it is working in our community.
Yeah. So as I said earlier, a lot of these guys are doing great work on their own. And the whole idea was to bring the 10 guys together so we can be, that super group, so to speak, where we can impact a lot more people with our presence. And so some of the programs that we're kind of looking at is just really building up on goal setting. We're talking about things like building through the difficulties that we go through, building on resilience, things along those lines. I've been lucky enough to do some work in the prison system. I got a chance to go in just before COVID and speak to some of the inmates who are there. I know Randell has done some work as well. We've talked about, is there any way that we can partner with them to help the guys who are incarcerated? We're also working with a teacher who's going to use our book in a story, a chapter per book. A chapter per week with the students. And so we're going to use that to see how we can kind of grow that as well within the school system. So we have a few things that we're working on. But again, the whole idea is just to keep it moving so we can help people along their journey.
Wow. I'm still waiting on my copy. Like from the first time I heard of the concept, I said, this is a movement. And gentlemen, I salute you. The work that you are doing, will continue to do, and paying it forward, I salute you. It is so needed.
Yeah.
Wow. It is
absolutely is. So the name of the book, of course, is called New Me, 10 Men. I'm sorry, 10 Men, 10 Stories of Perseverance. And New Me, as you can see here, for those who can see, it's KNEW, but then you have the NEW that's in white. And that's because the book really does have two meanings. So NEW, New Me, means that sometimes we have to die to the old us before the new me can be born. That means that we have to sometimes step through those difficulties. We have to have those uncomfortable conversations that sometimes we don't want to have. We have to look at ourselves in the mirror and be honest with ourselves, be able to critique ourselves in the way that needs to happen so we can become better. We have to die to the old me so the new me can be born. And then so go ahead.
No, go ahead. The second point.
And the second new me, the KNEW, the Bible talks about in Jeremiah, it says, before you were born,
yes,
I knew you. And
Right.
so, we don't have to get too deep in the spiritual piece, but people need to understand that there's a calling. I believe there's a reason why you're here. There's a calling on your life, and we all have the ability to do something amazing in this world. And you have to know that your creator, whatever you call him, he knew you before you were here on this earth. And so the fact that you are known before you were here on this earth means that your life matters. It means that you're here for a reason. You're here for a purpose. And sometimes we get lost in the hustle and bustle of life. We get caught up in the mess. We get caught up sometimes in the social media, feeling like, how can I compete with what's going on out there? But we all have an individual calling, I believe, on our life that we can really make change in this world. And so, yes, there's a double meaning to this book, New Meaning.
So let me ask this question too. I'm just going to put the question out, and you can either answer it or one person can take it. Was there an emotional point where you physically released tears when you were writing, gathering your story? You said knowing it, being real with it, confronting it. Was there a release, like a cry, tears, a shout, cold sweat, any kind of a symptomology of a release and birthing into your new you?
Randell, you want to go first?
Oh, really?
No, I'm not afraid to go, but I want to give him an opportunity to jump in.
I mean, I think after the third time, like every time Jeff gave me the baby back, so to speak, I think I cried with the baby, and I'd say so mainly because it was a point of recognizing that not only have I overcome something, and not only have I really taken the moment to like reflect on the lessons and the learning, but that other people were going to have an opportunity to read this story. And I think it was a very vulnerable moment. I can't lie to you, because people had the opportunity to judge, the opportunity to really see me and what I've really been through. You know what I mean? And I have to say, it was quite relieving. There was this moment of feeling relieved, but I'd say like the really biggest release would have been on January 11th of this year, when we actually did our book launch.
Yeah, that was huge.
That was huge, because for the first time I got to hear from the other brothers, and every brother had a moment to speak, and families came, and people came out to support. And I would have to say that was probably the biggest release, because for the first time I can say I fully understood the wholeness of the project, hearing the brothers speak about their story specifically. So that's what I would say for me personally.
Thank you.
I love that. I'd say the same thing for the release that we had as well, how powerful that was. But I got to say, I've been sharing my story about losing Omar for many years. I've been blessed with the opportunity to speak in front of crowds, specifically in front of schools across Canada. And I've been sharing the story about losing my cousin and the battle that I faced. And so I would say that, I didn't have an awakening when I was writing it. Of course, I had to dig deep. When you're speaking on stage, you have a certain amount of time. But when you're writing, you really want to pull out the elements that matter. So I did have to go deeper than my regular talks. However, I've gotten to the point where I am healed through the difficulties that I have been through. Yes. And doesn't mean that it's not tough. Doesn't mean I don't miss my cousin by any means. But I'm able to share my story again, going back, as I said, because I know my story will help somebody else. And so, I've shed my tears, of course, losing my cousin. I've seen the pain and anguish that my family has been through. And every time the anniversary comes around, which unfortunately is his birthday, we kind of relive it as well. And so, and the sad thing is that no one has been caught for his murder. And so, it's something that we still have to relive. However, again, because I know that the whole idea is to share my story to help others to grow, I'm able to live through it and to walk through it. So I wouldn't say there was a specific opening or shout or tears when writing, because I've already lived through that.
Wow. Gentlemen, again, we salute you. I love to hear when men express themselves, because you've said it, and I'll just reiterate, paying it forward. You're helping another gentleman who is logged on. You're helping a wife to understand her husband based on you just expressing. When a man speaks, you have the ability to shape the world. And gentlemen, I'm going to ask this question again. Knowing what you know now, you've gone through some stuff. You're now authors, along with your own in your own professional rights, what would you tell your younger self?
You know,
Mr. Martin?
that's definitely a deep question. And what I would tell my younger self is what I continue to tell the young people that I work with. Like Randell, I know Randell does a lot of mentorship. I do mentorship as well. And when I get an opportunity to sit and speak with some of these young folks, you know, I let them know that there's so much more that's waiting for them on the other side of whatever mess that they might be going through. And, you know, when I received the information of losing my cousin and I had that battle within, if I had a fuller understanding of what was waiting for me on the other side, then maybe there wouldn't have been a battle. And I know we have to face the things we face in life, and that's how we get to where we are. But, you know, looking back now, again, if I was able to talk to myself, I tell myself exactly what I tell these young people. Like I said, there's so much more waiting for you. And sometimes when our young people look outside their door, their front door, you know, depending on where they live, they see violence, they see prostitution, they see drugs, they see gangs, but they have to know there's so much more beyond that. And if they give themselves the ability just to continue to push forward and to seek advice through mentorship, they can achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve. And, you know, we see these big celebrities on TV and what they have seemed to accomplish. And we have a lot of young people who are striving to be the next rapper or next basketball player, which is great if you have that skill. However, you know, there's so much other great things that you're able to do. You don't need to be that rapper to maximize your greatness. You don't need to be that basketball player to maximize. You can maximize your greatness exactly where you are and create ripples in the world from your house, from your home, just because you recognize how great you can be and you step into the world, into that greatness.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
That's beautiful.
Mr. Adjei?
You know, I've been reflecting on this metaphor for the past little while. What I would tell my younger self is everything is working out for you. I think it's really easy for us to get caught up with the things that are happening in our lives, the challenges, the adversity, and see ourselves as victims. And not only see ourselves as victims, but to wish the present moment was not what it was. And I think to myself, like, for you to think that the present moment is not what it's supposed to be is almost like saying that God is wrong, almost like saying like the universe is wrong. And how dare we say the universe that God is wrong when it is the universe, it's God that brought us here in the first place.
That's
and
right.
God was here before us, God will be here after us. You know, so who are we as human beings to say we know? So in terms of trusting the process and knowing that everything's working out for you, the other thing I'd really add to that is, like, when you think of a seed, the seed has the potential to turn to anything, right? There's so much potential inside of a seed. But often, in order for the seed's potential to actually sprout, you have to take the seed and you have to put it into the darkness of the soil.
That's
and so
right.
when you put the seed and put it into a dark place, eventually what has to happen is that seed has to crack. And under the pressure, it has to crack and germinate. And then it finds its roots into the soil, the same soil that's meant to be its burial place or the darkness, right?
That's right.
Once it finds its roots and it cracks and it germinates, eventually in the darkness is when it finds its light. It can finally pull through to the light. But when you think about our lives, each and every single one of us are like seeds. And every adversity that we go through is just that. It's you being put into the darkness.
Dark place,
that dark place is full of so much potential, so much learning, so much opportunity. But I think we have to find the seeds of opportunity in every adversity that we face. And so I'd remind myself that, yes, this may be a difficult situation. You might feel alone. You might feel like a victim, but you're going to be a better person for it. And so instead of seeing yourself as a victim, I think what's really, really, really important is to say, what can I learn from this? How can I be a better person? You know, and big up to Nicholas and Destiny. And I seen a couple of the fellas that were in the group.
Absolutely.
So thanks for being here and supporting us, fellas.
Absolutely.
We thank the audience for the support. And Mr. Adjei, you're not going to get off easy, because I read the bio. I know the secret, the award as a spoken word artist. And just as you have expressed yourself, it just dawned on me. Do you have a piece on your heart that you wanted to share?
Give it to us, man. This brother is talented.
Oh, I know.
Talented.
I know this. I
Wow.
know this. And here comes his best work. We're ready.
A poem that's on my heart right now to share would be, I shared this at the I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. I shared this at the launch, and I think I'll share that. I'll share that one.
Okay.
There's a longer one, but I don't know. This is just on my heart right now. So brokenness is the piece. I know too many broken people, broke into pieces they think they cannot fix. Like shattered glass, they may cut you when you try to uplift. Slice the helping hands, hoping to heal the harm that's happened to them. They often hurt in silence, then smile in your face today, and tomorrow you may hear of how their brokenness has escalated into acts of violence. We often judge these broken people, then call them names, label them, sometimes forget that like flipping a coin, they too can change. But what does it really mean to be broken when it is broken people that have helped mend the world? Because I realize that in our brokenness is when our true lives unfurl. Because see, brokenness is a sign of recreation, a sign of growth. But we fear brokenness because we fear the unknown and uncertainty. But brokenness can piece our wholes together perfectly, sometimes permanently. After all, if you've never known brokenness, how would you know when you're a whole? If you've never been broken, then how would you measure your growth? Thank you.
Oh, I'm telling you. Oh.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
Now you know why he's in the book.
Now I know why he's in the book and why you got the spoken word award as well.
Thank
you.
You.
My goodness, you are, gentlemen, you are truly gifted. And I want to thank you so very much for accepting our invitation. And I'm sorry, I'm just thinking of the words of the poem. Oh, give me a minute now. Let me just have a moment. Okay, I'm back. I would like to say to the audience, just to remind you that the Now Talk Show is sponsored by the Alabaster Wellness Clinic, where we specialize in clinical counseling, integrative medicine, and of course, trichology. This platform, as you see, it's a platform for men. It's a safe platform for men to express themselves. When a man speaks, he has the ability to shape the world. And this is the platform that we're offering. Should you know of another distinguished gentleman who has a story, an expression that will shape the world, please, we ask you to email us. We'll be more than happy to have you on the program because, again, when you speak, you're helping somebody else. And we need strong men. We need men to continue to speak word, to edify themselves, edify their partners, and of course, our future. It's so important. Gentlemen, I thank you so very much again for accepting the invitation to be on the Now Talk Show. Going forward, what is the next step in your professional lives that you guys would be doing? Like I know, Mr. Martin, that you are a law enforcer office. There's a lot of different things that is happening in our community. Are you a part of that initiative? Are you creating new initiative? Or can you shed some light towards that in terms of the next step, what you're doing now?
Yeah. So again, going back to what I spoke about earlier, everything I do is always about serving. It's always about helping. It's always about seeing people, pushing people forward to become the best version of who they can be. And so everything I do is about that. And so, I do have the piece where, I do work in law enforcement. However, I do pour so much time into public speaking, into writing. I'm working on my next book, perhaps sometime next year that may come out. I'm always trying to find different ways of creating courses and stuff like that, where again, it's about helping people. We talked about it earlier. 2020 has been the heaviest year that most people have had to deal with in so many different ways, losing the celebrities that we've lost from Kobe to Chadwick Boseman, people losing loved ones to COVID-19, us not being able, I saw Destiny right in there that Randell's a great hugger. We haven't got a chance to hug people in so long. We've been away from people. We've been doing this technical piece for so long over the last number of years. There's a lot of people, going back to what Randell just talked about, there's a lot of people who are broken and they're forced to face their brokenness now because there's nothing else to do.
Exactly.
Right. You're forced to face it. And so you have marriages that are unraveling. You have people that are unraveling. And, it's really an opportunity for people who are in the game of helping. Again, I see my man Danny jump in there earlier, Nick, again, Randell, people who are in the business of helping, of serving others, this is the time that we need to stand up like no other time before. And at the same time, it's been a rough year for me as well. Like everybody, it's been a rough year. I've struggled with so many different things as well in my life within this year as well. However, again, it's trying to find your footing to see how you're able to be of service to others. And I think, again, that's, for me anyway, that's always so important. And so, you know, when you're talking about what am I doing going forward, again, anything I do, regardless of how big or small someone might see it as, it's always about serving. It's always about helping others to push and become the best version of who they can be.
Do you have a social media platform you want to share with the audience so they can continue to support your movement?
Yeah, so you see it down there, Jeff A.D. Martin. You can find me all over social media with that, or my website, jeffadmartin.com. And that's where you'll find some of the courses I have. You can find links for this book and a children's book that I have as well, and courses that I'm also offering as well at this time. And then, of course, you can type in New Me Movement. Again, social media, Instagram, Facebook, we're on there. We have a New Me group on Facebook as well. And again, that's where you're going to see some of the courses and stuff that we have planned for the near future.
Wow. Thank you again. Mr. Adjei?
Similar to Jeff, I'm looking at, my poetry books and also just like my life story up until now, at least, and getting that out there. You know, there's something really special to be said about putting your stories on paper, because it's a legacy piece, right? Like they live along after us. And I'm glad that I was a part of this legacy piece with the fellas for New Me. So I'm really focusing on, you know, just kind of getting that in the next phase. But what I'm really, really focused on lately is I found art as a way to kind of transform my life. I've been doing that in the community through my organization called Edutainment and Rise Arts and Community Services. And so I have a social enterprise where I'm helping young people, you know, with a platform and an opportunity for them to not only share their experiences, but also use art as a way of healing. So through art therapy. So that's one aspect. And then, you know, really the other aspect is during this pandemic, during this time, is how can I ensure that artists are not only, you know, having the opportunity to share their work, but getting paid to do it as well too. And so it's something that I've been really focusing and honing in on. But, you know, the biggest project is this guy right here, you know, every day I'm working on myself and just asking myself how I can be better. Whether it's through reading or whether it's through being of service to other people or building my organization, meditation, prayer, you know, different things around that kind of keep myself growing and be the best version of myself possible. And I wanted to just leave people with something, if you don't mind. Like,
Please,
so I
please.
wanted to share this other poem, but I think it can be kind of summed up in this like quick wrap up. You know, this idea of legacy, I've fallen in love with legacy. I don't know what it is about legacy, but I just think about those who've come before us. And I think often it's so easy for us to look at the people who've come before us and, you know, praise them and give thanks for what they've done and how they've actually been able to inform and pave a path for us. But for those who are listening and those who will listen, I think it's also important that we recognize that we too have to acknowledge that one day we're going to be ancestors, right?
That's right.
What we're doing today is essentially going to inform what the future holds, not just for our children, but our children's children and our descendants, you know, 100, 300 years from now to come. And so I just want to remind people that it's not really about the day you were born or the day you leave. It's really about that dash in between. And what is that going to represent for the people that come after you, you know? And for both of you, I know this is how you guys are leaving your legacy. So I'm inspired, I'm motivated, and I just wanted to ensure people remember, like, every day that you live your life is a way for you to write that new chapter in your book of life. So, yeah.
Wow. That's, again, gentlemen, on behalf of the Now Talk Show, we salute you. We salute you. This movement it's a now prophetic move. It is the word that has become flesh. And once that transformation happens and manifests, you can't lose. You can't lose. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Because we're just about wrapping up the show. Is there Mr. Martin, I think I'm going to ask you to speak to men with a closing word. I'm going to ask you to do it because I see you as a Moses. You know, you're leading.
Thank you.
And the only reason that Moses could have led the flock through the difficult trials was out of obedience. And you can only be obedient when you're intuitive. You hear the higher voice or the elements. So I'm going to ask if you could just share a word to encourage men.
You know, I've learned over the last while, Randell just talked about self-reflection and how important that is. 2020 for me, because I've gone through some of the stuff that we're dealing with, and again, everybody else has as well. It's given me an opportunity to do a lot of self-reflection. And I continue to self-reflect. And I recognize that as men, you know, we find it difficult sometimes to find that outlet, to find that person or that individual that we can really speak to and speak from our heart. You know, as men, sometimes when we get together, it becomes a macho contest. You know, how much weights I can lift. You know, how heavy is that? You know, we have those things that we, you know, it's a contest that we sometimes have that's not spoken of. But we really need to get to the point where we can be open and honest about what we are dealing with and what we are going through. 2020 again has been so heavy. You know, we don't need to go too deep, but you know, the fact that we saw George Floyd on the ground, I saw myself, because it was a young Black man who was on the ground, and I could see a reflection of myself. I saw a reflection of my children being there, because at some point in time, my 3 boys, 11, 7, and 2, at some point in time, they will no longer be considered as cute. They'll be considered as a danger or a suspect or something along those lines. And what I want men to understand is that we really need to find that outlet that we can speak, that we have an opportunity to share, because we have been, and you know, we're talking about Caribbean men. Sometimes we are brought up in a circumstance, and even you know, men from Africa as well. We're brought up in circumstances where we lead, and as men, I think it's great that we lead. But because we're always leading, we never really get a chance to break down and share what we're going through, what's really going on in our hearts and our minds. And so it's really important that we learn to find those outlets, because that's how we're going to become better. That's how we become the best version of ourselves. If I'm broken and I'm trying to lead my family, I'm only leading them into brokenness.
That's right.
But if I can be whole, I can find ways to become whole, then I become better for my family and my community. So for the men who are listening, it's important that you continue to look for that group of people who you can be honest and open with. You know, sometimes it's definitely difficult to find for men, but if you start out with vulnerability, you'll find that others will be vulnerable as well. And again, going back to the book, we were all vulnerable because we want other people to see that they can be open and vulnerable as well. And when you start sharing, you're going to find that others are sharing as well. We're not in this alone. We are not an island. Once we're able to open up, we can really start to see that others are going through it. One of the most powerful things is that, you know, we sit there and we stew with the issues that we're going through. But once you share and you hear that somebody else has gone through it, those words, me too, I've been through it as well.
Right.
It changes things from being on an island to being in a community. And that's what it comes down to. So as men, we need to find that outlet, look for it, seek it. It's really something that you need that's going to help to mend you and to make you better.
Wow. With that, and on that note, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we thank you. Gentlemen, we honor you, we salute you. On behalf of the team of the Now Talk Show and the audience, we say thank you again. Don't stop. Don't stop. Whether you extend it to 100 men in chapters to come, okay? Remember I said that, in chapters to come. Don't stop. We need this. As a woman, we need this, because we need strong men to support a strong woman. So again, we salute you. Thank you so very much for accepting our invitation to express yourself. I know you have helped a man, and those who would listen to this broadcast in future time, you will also help them as well. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you for joining us on the Now Talk Show. I'm your host, Dr. Nadine Wong. The Now Talk Show is sponsored by the Alabaster Wellness Clinic, where we specialize in clinical counseling, integrative medicine, and trichology. Once again, should you know of another distinguished gentleman, should you have a story, please email us at the Now Talk Show. Be more than happy to establish a time where you can bring forth your truth to express. Without further ado, have a good evening.
Thank you.